And we are live. Welcome to the stream. We're going to be talking about the real estate flattening. Last week we were talking about all the buzzwords. Last week they were saying it's going to be a more balanced market. Now they're saying it's going to be a more flattened market. So I don't. But I've always said, and I maintain this. It's stagnation. We're not going to be seeing anything. Like home prices aren't going to zoom up to the sky like they have been. Thank God, because enough's enough. But we're not going to be seeing these huge drops in price like people have been predicting as well. Not for a while, anyways. And I have some reasons for that. I'm not just pulling this out of my rear end. I have some statistical data to share with you, but I have a really important, wonderful guest to share her thoughts on the housing market with me. And you guys know her, and you watch her because you watch her channel, you watch my channel, and that's Miss Shaheeda Hill.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Kristina, thank you so much for having me on this Sunday. I'm excited to talk about the housing market with you.
Happy Labor Day.
Not happy Labor Day.
Anything to a real estate agent.
Right. They're still working.
Yeah, we're still working. It does not mean boo-ha. Right. But yeah. So I don't know if you've seen the recent headlines. Last week they were talking about balanced market. This week the buzzword they're using is flattened. So yeah. I don't know, is it balanced or is it flattened? What is it the Atlanta market right now?
I think it's balancing out. I would say balancing out. Also, it's just there's more days on market. Bottom line,
How many?
Right now, we're probably averaging about, it depends on where you are, but maybe 10 to 14 days on the market. Still pretty quick. And it also depends on price range. Because if you're like a lower price listing, and here that would be like 200,000, 250, you're coming off the market fast. But if you're like 400,000 and up in the Atlanta market, you might stay on the market a little bit longer. Higher than that, you're staying up, much longer. So, but it's not that you list something and you're getting 10 offers anymore. You're listing it and you're waiting and trying to get 1 or 2 offers.
Yeah, you've had a hot market during this pandemic. And I was really interested to hear from you because of the fact that you guys have had so many institutional investors. And there's been a lot of articles saying that institutional investors are no longer buying homes. And I wanted to ask you, have you been seeing that trend in your specific area? Because you were one of the hottest markets getting institutional investors buying up the least expensive homes. So
yeah, like one time, I think 40% of all deals in Atlanta were, institutional investors, private investors, that sort of thing. That's much less. I don't have a specific number on it, but almost every home under a certain price range, you would get at least one offer or 1 or 2 offers from an institutional investor wanting to buy that house cash. Now I would say that's definitely declining because things are staying on the market a little bit longer. And so those first-time home buyers in that price range have a better opportunity to actually buy that house.
Do you think in your market that this is a buyer's market or is this a fair market? Like, it's equal buyer to seller ratio? I mean, what do you feel like right now?
To me, it's still seller leaning toward buyer. So not buyer, no, seller leaning toward balance or normal as they take it. In my brokerage, everybody's talking about it's a normal market again. It's a normal market again. But it still takes a minute for the sellers to realize it's a normal market because they're like, it's 2 weeks. It's been a week. My house hasn't had any offers. My house isn't sold because they got so used to everything coming off the market so quickly. So sellers, in their mind, they're still they still feel like they're in control. And they're really they might have to pay some closing costs where, due diligence are back to normal due diligence time periods, stuff like that. So, it's still a seller's market, but it's moving very quickly toward a normal market in Metro Atlanta.
Yeah, I heard a quote where they were saying that the mindset of the sellers is from last year at this time.
Oh yeah,
and the mindset of the buyers is a year from now on what could possibly maybe happen. Right. So the buyers are like, I want $150,000 off this $200,000 house.
Right, I want it now.
I want it now, and I want it I'm going to rake the sellers at the coals, and the sellers are like, "Oh no, you're going to let go of your due diligence period." And in some cases, they're not meeting in the middle.
Right.
But go ahead.
It's going to be that teeter-totter for a little while until, like you said, it kind of flattens out, normalizes, does all of that. Because like you said, if I'm in a subdivision or if I'm, in a neighborhood and I know what my neighbor got last year or last summer, I'm like, okay, I can't take less than that. So that mentality is still there with a lot of these sellers. So their pricing still too high, but you see, like even in my, I'm about 30 minutes out of downtown Atlanta, and we had 40% of all of our listings had price reductions, 40%. So they were pricing them too high. 40%, that's a lot. It's almost half, of all homes had a price reduction in our area. And a lot of people were they're pricing what their neighbors got last summer. And so they had to wait and see nobody's coming, and they had to reduce that price.
Right. Well, I think there was some sellers that were kind of like over exuberant about home prices. I had that happen. That happened here as well, because the people that were in the 250 range, 200 range at the beginning of, like when the pandemic started, now are in the 3 area, right?
Right.
So like they're just at 3, but they want 320 now. And then the listing agent's telling you, you're not going to get 320. Well, the buyers can come down. Well, they don't understand. The buyers are like, no, I'm not going to pay that. And they won't even come see it.
Right.
Right. But, and the thing is that like, a lot of the we had a builder, like they couldn't build for a period of time, and now they're back building again. So some of them are like, well, I'm just going to build a new house. Forget it.
Like, I don't need to wait for your house. I'll just buy my own brand new.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's brand a lot. Like, sellers they're having these come to Jesus moments, especially with their listing agents, as to, the correct pricing to get more people actually to come to see their house. They just don't have as much buying power. I think at the end of last week, we were at 6% interest rate. You don't have as much buying power as you had last year or even earlier in this year.
Yeah, we were like going, it was like the rates have been crazy. It was like 5.4, then it was 5.6, then it was 5.8, then 5.4 again. It was like, they've been bouncing all over the place.
It was what Jackson Hole or whatever, the Fed chairman said, there will be pain, and everybody panicked. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that. Thank you guys. Yeah, he said, it will be pain.
He does that just to get people.
Just that. He said it will be pain, and those interest rates shot up, meaning he's going to have to like go higher on the rate probably in September. He's anticipating that. So I think that shot everything up where, inflation's not dealt with. Definitely not. We see it in the grocery store. I had my kids the other day. I was like, look, we want some snacks. I gave them both like $10. And I said, get whatever snacks you want. And they were making some decisions. They didn't want the Oreos. They were getting like the chocolate with the cream filled,
Yeah. They're getting fake Oreos.
Yes, exactly. Fake Oreos. But if I came home with fake Oreos, they'd be like, why are you getting us this? Why are these Oreos? But when they have $10 in their pocket, they're getting those fake Oreos so they can get the Cheetos that they want. Right. So everybody's making those decisions. And, same thing with the house. They have to make sure they can afford it because they may be scared that they may have a layoff or something like that.
Yeah. Well, let's get into this first article and what they had to say about our flattening market here. Here we go. Da, da, da. Eddie's going to pull it up for us. So hopefully he's at the computer. He's making a deep fried turkey today. If anybody knows anything about deep fried turkeys, so that's what he's probably looking at.
He cooks and he produces. I love it.
Yeah, well, this is one of those things. Will housing prices flatten or collapse? Boom, bum, bum. Home prices are fast approaching the pace of gains that would be consistently low for with low inflation, but there's a risk of an overshoot. Okay, here we go. He's scrolling down. Everybody hold bated breath here. Okay. Home price appreciation is slowing fast across the country under the weight of high mortgage rates, with typical property values even falling month over month in the about fifth of its major metro areas in July. Clearly, the slowdown is necessarily if the Federal Reserve policymakers are going to cool inflation to restore affordability to the housing market. Even if they upped it, the still houses are too high for affordability. The challenge is to prevent deceleration from becoming a collapse. The monetary policymakers have a chance to pull it off, provided unprecedented outside forces cooperate. Typically, nationally, typical home prices rose a seasonal adjusted 0.7 last month from June, according to Zillow Home Value Index data released on Friday. That's consistent with an 8.5 home appreciation in an annualized basis of considered downshift from the pace of 25% in mid 2021. The Fed is coming in hard and fast on the 5% pace that was common for 5 years ago before the pandemic, which would finally be consistent with its goal of bringing inflation back under control. Here's the thing, like, even to this day, right now, we are not close to pre-pandemic levels, right? Yeah, I don't know how it is in your market, but nationally, we do not have enough homes on the market for the amount of demand. There is still demand of homes. We still do not have enough affordable houses. And we've had this problem way prior to the pandemic. I've been talking about affordable housing crisis here in the United States for over 4 years because we do not have enough affordable homes. I'm going to touch on that in just a second. Okay. Then on top of it all, I don't know if you like, people are counting on there's going to be this wave of foreclosures, that someone would ask me about this. And it's like the foreclosure rate isn't where people want it to be if they're looking for a huge amount of deals coming from foreclosures. I looked at Black Knight Analytics. This doesn't come from some cookie website, everybody. Well, I got it from blah, blah, blah. No, this is Black Knight Analytics, and they've seen a sharp decrease in foreclosures. And I consistently maintain that we're going to stay in a stagnant market where it's just like there isn't much doing of anything until the job markets collapse. If the job market collapses, then we'll see houses go down like a lot. Look at what people are hoping for that are in that buying position. Now, if you're in a seller's position, you don't want the housing market to collapse. But I understand, I empathize with people that are looking for a more affordable home. With that being said, this is the part I want to talk about. I don't know if you do anything with this, but have you seen anything about manufactured home parks, mobile home parks, trailer parks, whatever you want to call them? Have you seen anything? Okay, so
I haven't seen anything about those.
Okay, in the last 2 years, big investors have come through and bought up as many manufactured home parks as possible. Then they come in, and because there's no regulation on manufactured home parks, they've increased the rent 50%. In the last 2 years, on average, mobile home parks rents have gone up 72%.
Oh my goodness.
The biggest majority of people that are living in those affordable homes are the elderly. Yeah. So I'm going to be talking about that on my next video. So if you're
elderly,
solutions
are hard hit right now. I know, like, especially on their fixed incomes, they're trying to figure out what to do next, and they were renting. It's a big problem. I am a big proponent of, if you have a house, or two things. Anytime I'm dealing with a client that's above 40, I ask them, where are your parents living? And I've done this all the time, because if you're 40 and you're buying a house, and your parents are probably like 60, they might be in their 70s. You have to kind of almost think, what happens if they can no longer live by themselves, or if they can't afford to live? Will they be living with you? And I say, well, do you need a basement? Do you need an in-law suite? Do you need a room on the main level? That's something I think every 40-year-old needs to start thinking about, as to, can you house your parents? Because if they cannot afford,
get a little tiny house.
Yeah, or tiny house. That was the second thing I was going to say. Or if you have enough property, and if it's allowed, can you put them in your tiny, on your property in a tiny house? Because that's what people need to start thinking about, because of the aging population that we're, all in. Can your parents afford to live on their own? Because a lot of people don't have enough saved for retirement. They may not be physically able enough to work. So you have to kind of think about that. And the exact thing happened. I had clients call me like 2 or 3 years later. Oh, they're like, my parents will never move with me. And unfortunately, one parent passed away in that 3-year span. The other parent lives on their own. So eventually that parent is going to be with them, and they're going to have to sell their house and buy a new one. So I just think that's something that everybody should be thinking about. But yeah, affordability is a huge issue, and it's a huge issue in the senior population.
I'll tell you what really stinks about those parks is the when they have those rents that happen like that, because typically they own the actual building itself. They own the manufactured home. Right. They're only renting the land underneath it.
Right.
So that lot rent is what's costing them. And then they make up all these excuses, and their leases don't protect them as a buyer, and neither does any kind of state regulation. Like it's not like a apartment complex or a condo association. It's nothing like that. So basically these park owners can really rake these people over the coals, and the eviction process is much easier for them as well. It's not the same as like if you evict a tenant out of out of a house that they're renting from you, even though they own that piece of real estate. If you evict these people and they can't afford to leave it, like they can't afford to move it, the park owner gets the house. They now own that. They can just purchase it.
They're evicting you off their land. They're saying like, get off my land. Like you can have
your
house, get off your land.
Right. And because of the fact that it's their house and they can't afford to move it, it becomes property of the owners because they've been evicted. So they get nothing for the house that they just purchased. They own.
Right.
Not one red cent.
I don't know the numbers. I know they've been saying about how many people who retired had to re-enter the job market for inflation, for higher costs, for all of that. So yeah, it's definitely going to be, I mean, this country is facing a lot of problems right now, but that's going to be a major one. Senior housing, also senior homelessness is a big deal.
That's what I was just going to say. Homelessness
in the suburbs of Atlanta, they're seeing a lot more homeless senior populations.
And they've been talking about the homeless population in rural areas that they never thought in a million years they would see. Right. But I think this is a big indication of how high rent has gotten in a lot of these places. So Doug Stufflebean, I love saying his name. Whenever he calls, I'll be like,
hey. Cool name.
I'm like, hey, Mr. Snuffleupagus.
Really cool name.
I know. With a $49.99 super chat. Thank you so much. He shows up every week, Mr. Right. Stufflebean. Thank you. I appreciate the super chat.
Love that.
Yeah. So let's pull up these Black Knight analytics, because people are like, what about, because last week they were talking about foreclosures and that a YouTuber was saying that the foreclosures are going to be hitting the market. We're going to have this huge wave of foreclosures. Okay. So Eddie's going to pull those up. Here we go. This is the outlook for July 2022. Of course, I know that we're in September, but we're just gonna, this is how that looked. Anyways, this came out August 24th. So national delinquency rate did edge up 2.8% in July, driven by a 4% increase in the early stages of delinquencies, but the remains at a 14 basis points higher than the record low set in May of this year, but it's still not that high. Serious delinquencies, loans more than 90 days past due, but not yet actively foreclosed, pulled back in July after the worsening for the first time in 22 months ago in June. This is the one that I wanted. The number of seriously delinquent loans curing to current has dropped steadily over the months from 104,000 in March to 58,000 in July. That's nearly half, indicating the easiest workouts have likely been completed. So a lot of these mortgage companies have been working with people that, have maybe taken the forbearance or have gotten delinquent on loans. They don't want these people to foreclose because it's a process to go through the foreclosure, and it could take months to years for them to return their money on that investment. So a lot of banks are like, hey, let's work with you. Let's readjust this loan. Let's see how we can make this happen. And they're doing it. So that's what, it's indication of what those numbers are. Right. Foreclosure starts retreated 25% from June for the total of 17,700 starts. Some 55% below pre-pandemic levels for the month of July, equating to 3% of 90-day past due loans. So the foreclosures are not going to be the thing that makes the housing market collapse at this point. And another reason that we're not going to see foreclosures like we did before, and I've said this 1,000 times, and I'm sure you will agree with this, when people were foreclosed on the last housing recession, housing crash, whatever you want to call it, housing bubble, they had terrible loans. I said this 1,000 times. They were given loans to just about anyone. Right. And I mean, it was just, they were selling a terrible product. There wasn't any restrictions really on anybody getting a loan. You could just walk in with a phone bill and a bank statement and a W-2 form, and then you could get a home loan. Today, they rake you through the coals. So a lot of times, that the same people that, like they may have a good job. They have like, I own a business. This is my job and everything. It takes them forever to get a loan, forever. It's not the same as it was before. Not even close.
Yeah, they had a lot of those balloon loans. So you get like 1 year interest only, and then after, so you can afford the interest only part, but you couldn't afford like the actual payment. So when that became due, you're like, what do I do now? And nobody prepared them for that. Loan officers, real estate agents were like, let's just get them in the house. We don't know what's going to happen after that. It was like,
those predatory lenders should be.
Yes, it was just
hurt.
Really, it was just about getting them in the house. So you got them in the house knowing when the payment changed, they couldn't sustain that payment. That was happening a lot. And I think with the foreclosures, I'm with you. I don't think there's going to be mass foreclosures because, one big part of it, if anything, you want to be able to stay in your house because that's the only thing you can afford. You can't afford to rent. It'd be one thing if you said, if I foreclose, I'll let this house go and then go rent, cheaper somewhere else. You can't afford to do that. So, your people are going to hold on to their house as much as they can. I think they'll go work for Uber and this, just to make those payments so they can, stay in that one thing that's stable because everything else out there is more expensive.
Right. And and they can count on that payment. The only time this is one of those things I was thinking about though, is that some areas, the property taxes, because the prices rose so much, their property taxes are going to readjust. So that payment may be even more this coming up year once it does readjust for those taxes, especially in some areas that don't have homestead. So that's something to look out for.
Yeah. And I was going to say for seniors, for sure. So seniors, they may have their mortgage paid off, but now they can't afford that new tax payment. So make sure if there are senior homestead exemptions in your area, check on your old elderly, relatives to make sure they've applied for that. Because they're not going to call them up and say, hey, it's your 65th birthday. We're going down to your taxes. Most counties, you have to apply, to get that exemption. So yeah, but I do agree that mortgage did go up in taxes. I know we went up. There was a lot of things, but I think we're still lower than it would be to rent, something similar. Like to me, what I'm paying in my mortgage, I could probably get a 1-bedroom apartment in my area.
Yeah, well, that's just like, that's the one thing I'm going to be keeping my eye on is the rental market because the prices have gone up so high. They have to come down.
Right.
There's so many people that can't even afford to rent. I mean, I see, like, I'm one of these people that scroll on TikTok. I can't help it. Right. And then and then I always stop at the ones that say, oh, I just got my new lease. It's going up $500. That's a lot of freaking money. That's a lot. And then, I understand there's lots of things that have gone up, but if you have your food that's gone up, your rent that's gone up, you can only count on your car payment staying the same.
Right.
But then you have your gas going up. I mean, that's a lot on a family, a lot. So that makes me very, very concerned. I'm still on the lookout for that.
Yeah. There are going to be a lot of millennial generation Z moving back home. They can't afford to live, or they're going to be living with multiple roommates if they want to live independently.
Well, that's interesting that you say that because here's another reason why I don't think the housing market's going to totally fall out 50%, like how some people are saying, because the biggest market of people that are buying homes right now is one of the biggest generations, and that's the millennials.
Right.
So they're just now finally getting into their houses, and they're buying up the least expensive to the middle of the road houses, because they've saved a big nest egg because they did stay with their parents for a period of time. Yeah. So I think that's going to be more commonplace. My daughter even said to me, she goes, I don't know if I'll ever be able to afford a home. I'm like, you're going to be able to afford a home. You're going to she's a smart girl. She's 19 and actually saved out to buy her first car. She bought herself. Cool. Yeah. She saved $9,000 and bought herself her first car.
She'll be fine.
Yeah. And in a year.
Yes. Oh yeah. She'll be fine.
Yeah. I'm like, girl, when you want something, you can do it,
Yeah. Right.
He says, I love your show. When are you going to take a weekend off? The only time I take a weekend off, even when I had COVID, I still did it. But if you don't see me, sometimes I take off for Mother's Day and for Father's Day. Okay. I do that. And I take off if I'm out of town. And even then I try to do it when I'm out of town, but sometimes I just can't. Debbie Brady, your dreams coach, says, are you getting back to the usual days of the market in Atlanta? Is it typical days?
Not yet. Not yet. We're still below what's normal. And I would say what normal is like pre-pandemic, I guess. But yeah, we're not there yet, but I feel like we're inching toward it.
What is typical for how many days on the market before?
I would say definitely under 30 days for most homes, and we're not there yet. So yeah,
we were 45 days. 45 days
prior.
Yeah. So it's the 45 days for the under 300,000, and about 60 to 75 days for above 400,000. You know, like because there's just like we just don't have a lot of people that can afford those type of homes.
Yeah,
in our area.
Yeah, we had low inventory right before the pandemic. Like, so it was kind of hard to find out. You could find one, but it may take you like a couple of weeks or a month to find what you needed. It was still like low inventory before the pandemic.
National average for days on the market right now is 24 days on the market, which is up from last year at this time, but still way below the norm. You know, the average pre-pandemic, which was about 45 days. So, you know, when you see what concerns, if I'm always keeping an eye on the inventory, you know, and you know, we're still low, and my biggest concern is for affordability, and we are so beyond not affordable for most Americans. So
yeah, question, almost approaching like 2 months of inventory. The last time I checked, like in our area, like approaching 2 months of inventory.
And what is the national average? Do you know?
I think the national average last time, like Realtor came out with 3.3. They said it was at 3.3.
Yeah, but do you know what the average was pre-pandemic?
I don't.
6 months of inventory.
6 months inventory. Okay, yeah.
That's
a big difference.
It's still difference. Like still the houses are still selling. Yeah. Brian Thomas says, for an investor, how can I get a realtor that will act on and function as a buyer's agent? You look for one that is just a licensed buyer's agent. I was a buyer's agent for, the first 5 years of real estate. I didn't take listings. And when I did take a listing, I always had a co-listing agent that was more seasoned to do it with me, because I wanted to represent my sellers correctly. But yeah, you look for one that is a buyer's agent that only does buyer's agent contracts and only works with buyers. I did that forever.
And I think too, Byron, is work with somebody who works with investors. Like some people specialize in working with investors and finding property. Yeah. I never really liked working with investors because they'll send you, well, this is my parameter. I need something that has this so much market and 1%, you know, they have all of this stuff. Like that's a lot of work. And if you're buying, it's different if you're buying like 10 of these homes, but if you're buying like your first rental property and you're like, it needs to have this much equity and this much stuff and less than 20, like I'm doing a lot of work for you. To get like pennies, not pennies, but you know what I mean.
Oh no, because the houses are like $45,000. No, I did that.
So like you really need to find an agent that works with a lot of investors. They get a lot of properties and they're just kind of putting out, okay, this one came on the market, this one came on the market. But a lot, especially first time investors, they're looking for that agent to do a lot of work for them. And they don't, there's no pay until they close, if it closes.
They want you to go visit those properties.
Yeah, visit it, look at it, send them pictures, send them videos. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, because they're too busy. They're too busy to go look at them. And the houses are $35,000, $45,000, $50,000.
I did one of those seminars and told them to put an agent on their team, and the agent's going to do all this stuff. We're not doing all that stuff.
No, I did that for a year for a group of guys. And then I got exhausted by it. They're like, you're not sending us any more houses. I'm like, oh, I just stopped calling them.
Yeah.
And I just ran into him. He's like, oh, you're the first one that we bought our first investment property with you. And I'm like, you bought about 20 of them. And then I realized you're working like a dog.
Like by the time you divided the numbers, it's like, oh, I made $10 an hour. That didn't make a lot of sense.
So $7.50.
Yeah, I would definitely charge a fee up front, that sort of thing. If I was dealing with an investor, especially a new investor, there are some investors, they're buying a lot of property. So it makes sense.
That's different.
Yeah. But when you're buying like one or two every once in a while, and you're not even sure you're going to buy one, unless it meets that specific criteria that you have in your mind, it's a lot of work. So that's why if you're going out, they're saying like no, or you're not hearing back from them. That's probably why.
Yeah, but then I worked with other investors that like they drive around, they take the address down, they call me up and they say, "Hey, what's the history on this?" And it takes me a clicks of buttons to pull up, the history on it and the tax records, and then I just plop that over. That's a different type of investor. There's the ones that want you to do all the legwork. They want you to drive around and find them deals. Kristina says no.
Okay.
Not doing that. Not worth my time. All right, there's a question for you.
Okay.
Shaheeda, the sales of 300 to 400,000 homes in Cobb, Bartow, Cherokee counties are balancing out and spending weeks on the market, being pulled off the market, then put back on again. So probably at a new price or with a new agent.
Okay, if you're doing something 300 to 400,000 in Cobb and Cherokee, that's in good condition, moving condition, is relatively new. They're probably going under contract quickly. I would see like older homes that are not like rehab, because I mean the average in Cobb I think is like 380 something for the average home, and there are different parts of Cobb that are much more expensive. So a lot of times if it's priced too high, and instead of letting it sit on the market, a lot of agents will take it off or withdraw the listing and then put it back on the market so more eyes will see it that next time. Just kind of a strategy to make sure it pops up as a new listing versus it pops up as a listing that's been on the market for like 30, 45 days. And then people are thinking, well, these people are desperate. Let's, come in with a low offer. So it's just like a strategy for listing agents to make that property seem fresh and new.
Yeah. And if you are in a seller and you're kind of like, wow, this is kind of sitting and stuff, what I would suggest that you recommend to your real estate agent is to go ahead and get new photographs, even if you had a professional photographer before, to make that listing look new and fresh again, get new pictures taken, and then have a good videographer come out there and do a good property tour, not flip pictures with the cheesy music. That is garbage.
That's not a video.
That is not a video. Like someone that actually physically does a walkthrough tour of your house itself. Like we need to get back to marketing these houses like they deserve. And some of these houses haven't been marketed correctly, and they were overpriced. They have crummy pictures, like that's what you deserve as a seller. I don't care what price point you're in.
Right.
So
somebody said, or he or she said, East Cobb is much more like 600,000 exactly. So if you're finding something 300,000 in Cobb County that's move-in ready, it's probably in bad condition or it's very old for the most part.
When I lived I used to live in Roswell, Georgia, like right on the border of Alpharetta.
Yes.
And so Cherokee County was like, you live in Cherokee County?
Yes, I can't believe it. I wouldn't even drive out there. I was like, oh, Cherokee? Nah, not with my but that's like the hottest area right now.
Yeah, it was like super redneck. Nobody lived out there.
I can't go that far. It's too far for me.
Byron has another question. If they are looking for a house outside their ability to use their 30% of their income to live in the house, then it's more of an individual affordability, not a market issue. Is that correct? The amount of homes that are available for people that would be using like 25% of their income to purchase it are not there. They don't exist. The median income in most areas doesn't buy the median house in most areas. And we are in an imbalance of that and have been, and it's been a heck of a lot worse since the pandemic. You take areas of like Austin, Texas, most of the people that like work there can't find a house in Austin to live anymore because they have been priced out of their own market. I think some of that needs to balance out. I don't think it would be necessarily a bad thing if we saw some prices drop in those areas because they were overinflated to begin with. And as they have more new construction that sits there, you're going to see more houses drop in price. But if you live in an area that doesn't have a lot of new construction and the job market is still high, then you're not going to see a major drop in home prices. That's my opinion.
Yeah. And I think typically what would happen is home values and wages would kind of go in step, right? So if you're in the neighborhood where salaries are a certain level, you should be able to, or usually you can afford some homes in that same area. That's not the case right now. They're like few and far between. And as Kristina said, or an investor is coming, if it is a house in that market, an investor's coming and paying cash and putting you out of the market. So a lot of things like that have taken the market out of balance. When I first started in YouTube, like really doing YouTube videos in Atlanta, in 2019, I got my client a move-in ready house for $97,000. And she qualified for 97. She found a house for like that would be impossible. And it was just like a single mom buying her first house, and she was able to find a move-in ready. That's something. And if salaries haven't gone up that much for that person, there'll be no way if that person came to me today and said it was a challenge then, but we still found her something in about, say, a month and a half. If that same person came to me now and said, I qualify for 100,000, 120,000, I'd be like, okay, it's going to be nearly impossible for you to find something at that rate. And that's just 2 or 3 years ago. So, things are very much not in lockstep. And Atlanta specifically is, and a lot of places are, but Atlanta has just become unaffordable for most people at our average salary.
Yeah, that in our area you used to be able to find a house for 150,000.
Yeah.
Easily, easily. And now there is no such thing, unless it's a total like tear downs, back up. Because I did see one, I was like, "Ooh, that's nice." And then I opened it up and it hadn't been remodeled since the 2016 flood. It was just studs and it was all cut drywall at the bottom. I'm like, oh God. Kristina says no. YM says, question, do you see Bank of America's new home loan program lets borrowers buy homes in select cities with 0% down and no closing costs? Shaheeda Hill knows all about this. She just did a video on this. Go ahead, Shaheeda. This is your
I did a video on this because it's kind of controversial because of the areas that, so number one, I want to say anybody, because I think that's a miscalculation. Anybody that wants to move to these 4 areas can buy a house using this program. There's a misconception that you have to be either Black or Hispanic to use this program. So anybody that wants to move to these areas can buy these programs. Now, the areas are predominantly Black and Hispanic areas, and they're doing it from the census. So this is something that if it works for you, you may be able to take advantage of it, but this is not the only thing. And I think there's another misconception that this hasn't already happened. There's always been an incentive for people to move places, to either revitalize them, to make sure that, people are going to live there. USDA, huge, right? Because they were incentivizing people to move to USDA areas. Now they're incentivizing you to move to Black and Hispanic areas. Whatever, this is not a new thing. So I want to make sure that people know, even though they're having this program, we're on social media, everybody's talking about it. These programs have been around for years and years and years. So my take on it, if it works for somebody, then it works for them. We live in a lot of areas in segregated areas anyway. And my thought is, if you've been living and renting in your area for 20 years, and a lot of people have for a long time and thought I could never afford to buy this place, and this helps you out, then I think, okay, I don't have a major problem with it. I know there's a lot of controversy about it, but for the most part, at least on my channel, I try to help people confidently buy their first home. That's kind of like my tagline. And it doesn't have to be one way. It doesn't have to be one program. It doesn't have to be all FHA or conventional, like whatever you need to do to get your first house and kind of build that, generational wealth, go ahead and do it. So this is just one additional avenue that may work for some people.
There's also other programs as well. So whenever you're purchasing a house, I always recommend that you work with a local lender when you are making that purchase, because they're aware of any state bond money that's available to you for helping you with your closing costs. There's all government grants that come out, and the only people that I have found that know what those are for your local area are only local lenders. You call the big guys and you're asking them about them. They're like, oh, we don't know anything about that. They literally have no idea.
Yes. Yeah. So you definitely just do your homework, and, things like this, even after the foreclosure crisis, they were incentivizing for people to move into these areas that were hard hit by foreclosures. They had grants everywhere to say, okay, move to this area because it's been hard hit by the foreclosure crisis. So these things have been around. This is just something new that's happening. But, if you do need help to purchase a first house, or need grants or down payment assistance, it's out there in just different forms.
Right. You just got to search. That's the whole thing. You got to do a lot of like pre-homework before you do it. It's out there. It's just hard to find. They don't make it readily available to find that information. I will tell you that. It's usually like on page 4 of the Google webs, so you got to do a little research. Michael has a question. Says, do you see a downtrend on the average price on homes in I live in Houston, Texas area. The quality of home does not match the prices. The quality of home in many areas doesn't match the prices. I will say the quality of home here, I'm like, I wouldn't pay like 300,000 for that house. Like, I know who the builder is.
Right.
Like, you're like crazy. Yeah, no, I still say that unless the job market collapses, we're not going to see big price reductions. Now, if you live in an area, and I'll say this again, if you live in an area that has a lot of new construction, you might see more significant price drops because some builders overbuilt. And that's what happened, during the last housing recession in like Las Vegas and Phoenix, Arizona. They had a lot of new construction during that time with the housing boom, and then it all fell out from underneath them, and they got the hardest hit with price reductions because the builders had to get rid of their houses, so they took a hit, and blah blah blah. We all know what happened. But if you live in an area like I do that doesn't have a ton of new construction, or if you live in the tighter areas of Atlanta that there isn't anywhere else for them to build, you're not going to see major price drops unless there is a collapse in the jobs market where people can't pay their mortgage, and even then people will be selling their houses because they have more Americans at this time ever in history sitting on equity in their house. I think it's like 42 or 45% of Americans have like over 20% equity in their homes. It's the first time they've ever seen this in history. So if they are in that situation where they are about to lose their job and they are going to be having missed payments, most likely they're just going to put it up for sale and try to sell it,
Right.
So just think of it that way.
Yeah.
I just don't.
And then I think if a lot of times, at least first time home buyers are stuck on new construction, like it has to be new. Just, think about resales right now. Like you said, these resale sellers are looking to sell. They're reducing their prices. They may be a little bit more motivated. So just open up your, options and think about resale as well, because they might be better built because they were built before.
Ooh, I was showing this a couple weeks ago that there was like a ton of shoddy new construction. Like there's a guy that goes around going that ain't right. That's what he's like. He's like, you see how these floor joists are cut in the middle? Well, that ain't right. And then he's like, you see how these plumbing, these two plumbing pieces are together? Well, that ain't right. That ain't right. I love him. Anyways, yeah. So there has been a lot of that new construction. But if you do have a good home builder in your area, new home builder, and you could even have it like pre-inspected if you wanted to, and they like the houses have been sitting there, this is one of the times that you can go ahead and rake that builder over the coals. You can be like, hey, you know what, you've had this house up for over 30 days and you still haven't have it under contract. What about giving me some closing costs? What about a new appliance package? What about giving me a discount? You can negotiate with builders on home prices. Some people have it in their head, well, that's the price and that's what the home builder said he's going to sell it for, but they will take reductions. They may not, may do it in closing costs because they want that sold price to remain the same, but at least you get something, if it's incentives, maybe even like, because in my area, they don't sod the backyard. You can ask them to sod the backyard, ask them for everything, ask them to fence it, ask them for everything. The worst they can say is no. And that's one of these times that, there are sellers that are panicking because they read a lot of headlines. And if you're looking to get a deal, like try to lowball it and see what happens. You may lose a lot of houses, but you may have that one's like, what? This has been on this up for sale for so long. I'll just get rid of. Yeah, let's just do it. And this is a great time for a buyer in the fact that, if you are concerned that the housing market's going to collapse and everything, and you're going to sell it in 4 years, then don't buy a house. But if you're like, I'm buying a house for me and my kids, we're going to be living there for the next 12 to 15 years, or this is my lifetime home that I plan on raising my children. This is the time that you can really like get a deal. Like you can go ahead and get those closing costs from sellers. You can get those home warranties, the 1-year home warranty. You can get a longer time to actually inspect the house. I mean, a year ago, people were foregoing the inspection period altogether and buying houses as is. Now you can know if the house that you're buying is not only worth it, but doesn't have a ton of stuff that you need to repair afterwards. I mean, it was crazy. It was
Right.
crazy. Yeah, you got a lower
Yeah.
interest rate, but who knows what you bought? You might have bought yourself like a lemon,
Problem. Yeah. You do have more opportunity in this market, like you said, because people are much more negotiable with you because they want to sell their house. So, if you are in the market, like you said, long term, if you're in the market long term and you plan on living there, you'll be fine. That's what I keep on telling people. If they're long term, buyers are going to live in that house, they'll be okay.
Yeah, but if you're just staying at your parents' house and you're kind of living rent free, man, wait it out, see what
Right.
happens. If you could afford to wait it out and build up your nest egg so you have more of a down payment and see what happens,
Right.
that's fine.
Stack that cash.
Yeah, and here was another thing too, because I talked to a lender. Some builders are buying down the buyer's points on
Right.
their mortgages, so you can get that, so you have a lower interest rate. So just
Yep.
just FYI. So there are some ways to get more creative because people know the party's over when it comes to the housing market. Like this is back to normal times, and there's some people that are panicking. So get what you can, let them
Right.
panic. Get what you can out of it.
Get what you can. There's always some upside in the downturn if you know how to use it correctly.
Correct. There's always something. There's always a deal out there. There's always deals to be had. Geraldine has a question, says, hello, North Carolina here. Can I get your insight? My mom paid $300 for an application on a home that we did not see. The man said it's sold. Can we get that $300 back?
Ooh, why are we paying $300 to see a house?
Well, I think you got robbed there, babe.
Yeah.
You can't. You shouldn't be paying $300 just to. Let me just say this: was that an application fee for a rental? Because if their application fee is $300, then it's $300, and no, you can't get that back if it was a rental.
Okay.
But if you were paying $300 to just go look at the house, hell no, get your money.
Right. Yeah. Be really, really cautious. There's a lot of people that are defrauding, especially renters, because they know like even the rental market is really hot and competitive. And so they're having all these application fees, and they may collect application fees from like a lot of people, but only, rent it out to one person. So you really want to be very, very cautious before you put any money down, any money out, to really know that you have a chance of getting that house. But I think that's probably sounds like you were scammed, or that your mom was scammed in this instance. So, just be really, really cautious going forward.
It was an application fee. So if that's for a rental, the only way I would, if it's for a company, like a big company, you're going to have a better time getting your money back by saying, like, what was that application for? What did you run my credit? I want to see what you pulled up. Right. And if they can't produce anything, they'll give you back your money, because that has happened. But if you're working with like, just, Tom down the street that has a $300 application fee, there's nothing that's holding him, because he doesn't have to. With a smaller investor, they don't have to follow the same rules as somebody that owns more than 10 properties. So just FYI.
Yeah. I'm sorry that happened to you.
There's like, I always knew there was greed. Like always knew there was greed. But in the last like 4 years, the amount of greed that has been exposed, and they're openly flaunting it, they're so wonderful for treating people like total garbage so they can make a buck, makes me literally physically ill. Like sometimes I'll be watching some of these investors and what they've done to people, and they're just laughing about it as they drive up in their Tesla. I literally feel sick to my stomach. Right. I'm like, how can they sleep at night? There is a day that it will all come collapsing down, my friend. Right. And I hope I'm there to see it.
Yeah, really unfortunate.
Yeah. When a realtor retract a listing from being on the MLS for say 90 days, am I seeing realtors will relist it to reset the days on the market? Is that a common procedure, or a new realtor that does that? Yeah, it's common. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they'll do it. Yeah, it isn't necessarily to reset the days on the market. It's to make it look like a fresh new listing.
Right.
So it, like, if someone's been on a like a feed, like you get the new listings that come on the market. So what happens is the older the listing is, the lower it goes down on their feed of houses to look at. So in order for it to come back fresh with fresh new eyes, so it hits the hot sheet, which is the front page of that, it will hit the front page, that hot sheet. That's what they do. They take it off the market for a period of time and they want it to be fresh for their eyes. And that's why I suggest if you're a seller and you're in this market and your house has been for sale for a while, listen to the market, reduce your price. Don't be silly. The party's over. Get reasonable, start working with buyers, get yourself new pictures and get yourself a good videographer. None of these floating pictures around with cheesy, corny music.
Right.
That makes me mad. That is for 5 years. It's made me mad. Like, what are you doing? That's not a video.
And clear the clutter of your house. Clear the clutter. Just make it look as fresh and new, because now people have choices. They don't have to just go to your house. They have a choice as to what they, want to buy.
Yeah. And if you're confused and you think that if you think that your real estate agent is giving you a bad number on the price of your home, you can pay for a pre-appraisal, and call an appraisal company and say, well, how much do you think my house is worth right now? And that way you can understand why your listing agent is suggesting that price. That was something that we have always done. It wasn't anything unusual before the pandemic. Now it might sound weird to people. Right. They're like, why would you do that? But I don't know. I always say, let's get ahead of the market. So if the housing, if the houses in the neighborhood sell for 300,000, don't be silly, put it up for 305. And if it doesn't, you don't get any bites, then put it in for 300,000, see what happens. Shaheeda is a great guest. I love her. That's why I have her on here. I think this is the third time you've been on here. Right. I love how much she contributes to the conversation. She knows her market. She sure does.
Right. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
I got to support my ladies, man. Yeah. There's many of us on the YouTubes.
Exactly. Yeah. We have to have like a women's only YouTube.
Yeah.
You have to have like your own room.
Yeah. And there isn't many of us that are over 100,000.
No, there really are. There's not.
No. So we're an exclusive club.
Yeah. I definitely appreciate the support. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, I love you. You're awesome. I've saved to buy in Middle Tennessee, but it's still over 250,000. I want to spend for a 5-acre home. Me too. What do you think will happen for the hot areas like that? Again, if it has a lot of new construction around there, you could see lower home prices. Acreage is one of those things that land prices don't bounce up in value as much as a home does. They usually kind of stay kind of stagnant. Of course they go up, but you're not going to see a piece of land that was 100,000 go up another 100,000 in a year. That's just ludicrous unless it was a rezoned commercial or something like that. That could be the possibility, but people want dirt. More and more people are like, I don't want to be around my neighbors anymore. If you can find a good deal on some land in Middle Tennessee, pick it up. But I can't see if the houses right now are going for over 250,000. You're most likely not going to see houses go back to that price again. Right. That would be unless the job market falls apart.
Yeah, I would look, in different areas. Just go a little bit out, a little bit further out, and maybe you'll get that price.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not happening in that area, because I think that's what a lot of people are waiting for to do. Like, I want a $500,000 house for $350,000. When is that going to happen? I don't think so. Like, it may be like 5% or 10%. But to say these huge losses are going to happen, I don't think that's going to happen.
Oh, this is interesting. So, what do you think of Central Florida? So, I don't know if you know this, Kevin, but I used to live in Central Florida, and during the last housing collapse, they had huge number of people that were buying up houses that shouldn't have bought a house. I mean, some of my neighbors, I'm like, how did they afford a house? I'm like, oh, they're getting foreclosed on next week. Like it wasn't surprising. It wasn't shocking at all. Even like I went back and visited one of the houses mysteriously burnt down to the ground, like things aren't adding up. The thing that's interesting about Central Florida right now is the fact that there is a lot of investors, but there are a lot of mom and pop investors that bought Airbnbs. And those are the most affordable houses that are closest to Disney, right? That's where I think it's going to be interesting to find out I think if there is a collapse in the job market, you're going to see a lot of houses because of those Airbnbs that will finally come back on the market. And as long as investors, like the big investors, don't come and scoop them up, there could be some bargains to be had there, especially in Central Florida. Yep. That was my old stomping ground. I lived in Altamont Springs. I lived in Castleberry. I lived all the way in Eustis in Lake County. Mm-hmm. My sister lived in Leesburg. I used to work at the Villages. I know my area, if anybody knows that. I've lived so many different places. Eddie, you got another question for me and Shaheeda? Shaheeda Hill. Shaheeda Hill. My tally says, do you think modular home versus manufactured home is better for investment for a first-time home buyer? So are you buying a manufactured home in a manufactured home park that has rents? Are you buying a manufactured home that's connected to land? Are you buying a manufactured home because it's less expensive? Or are you planning on selling it in the future? So manufactured homes on a piece of land, I don't care what Dave Ramsey says, they do appreciate in value, but they do not appreciate in value at the same rate as a typical stick-built home. Now, you take that same exact house with modular, you turn around, put it on that same lot, it's going to increase in value at the same rate as a typical stick-built traditional home. The homes that are built in for a manufactured home are built in a plant, and they're built to HUD specifications. Modular homes are also built in a manufacturing plant, but they're built to traditional international building codes, and they meet the same building codes as a traditionally built home. So that's the difference, and it's what you want. What are you looking for? If you're just looking for rentals, and you're just looking for that turnaround of rentals, buy manufactured homes. I mean, if you have them on, like, if you live in an area that allows like 2 per acre, stuff them, put them on there, 2 per acre. I mean, the best rentals we have around here are manufactured homes, and generally they pay cash. Like, they're like right at your doorstep, first of the month, giving you cash. Lend me some manufactured home rentals. Not gonna lie, they're great.
And it's really hard to tell between a modular home and a stick-built home, isn't it? Where you could tell kind of a manufactured home, but isn't it more difficult to tell between, just looking at it at least, a modular home and a stick-built?
Modular home, it looks like a regular house, honest to God. But if you look at today's manufactured homes, of course, you have the typical ones that are just a straight arrow all the way across. But now they know that looks like that, and that people are opposed to that. The problem is that they only can be so wide to get down the road. There's a regulation, right? So that's why they're that tube, so they can give people as much square footage as possible. So if you buy a triple wide manufactured home, they have figured out how to make it where it's kind of like it fits on that truck bed, but it's still, when they put it together, it's starting to look more like a traditional style home. So the engineering has gotten a lot better with those. And I don't know. I like myself a manufactured home, and they're nice inside. They're like, I'm like, if you haven't been to one recently, take a look at them. And like, people are like, oh, they topple over, they're tornado magnets. The regulations for those have improved exponentially. The way that they tie them down to the ground and they're bolted into the ground is not the same as it was in 1976 or 1986 or 1996. They're good houses. They're very good houses. They're, like, just take a look at it. If that's what you can afford for your area, and it's a hell of a lot less than renting an apartment, check it out. It wouldn't be a bad thing. And not only that, you could use that property, if that's your stepping stone, use that property in the future as, okay, we're going to live here for 6-7 years because it's so much cheaper than renting. You save yourself up a nest egg, then you keep that house and rent it out, that manufactured home, and you rent that in the future, so you have an income producing property, and then you buy yourself a traditional built home if that's what you want. So,
right.
All right, that was my soapbox.
Yeah.
Question, greetings from Tampa. Greetings from Tampa. Year half ago, looking for a house Finally find one from a friend off market. By the way, it's a manufactured home with almost an acre. Glad it finds your channel. Thanks, Kristina and Eddie. Oh, Eddie's my husband, if everyone doesn't
Yeah.
know.
He's a great producer.
Yeah.
Producer, husband, and he fries turkeys.
Yes, and he fries turkeys. Yeah. And he's going to be getting his drones license really soon.
Oh,
So,
that'll be lovely.
yeah. Yes, yeah. So yeah, if you're buying a home from a friend, whether it's a manufactured home, condo, whatever, and let's say you're awesome and you have like cash in your pocket to purchase it. I don't care if it's your mother, your cousin, your best friend. You have that damn thing appraised and make sure it's worth what they're asking you to pay for it. Because you don't want to be like, don't overpay for it. I don't care how much of a friend you are. You shouldn't be giving anybody over the amount it's worth. What is your opinion about that, Miss Shaheeda?
Yes. Definitely. I think a lot of people have been asking me, not a lot, but a few people on my channel, they were asking, I'm buying my mom's house. I'm buying this. I'm buying that. You still, like you said, don't overpay. Think about it beforehand. And FHA at least has some regulations when you're buying like a relative's house. You need to be mindful. It's not going to be that same down payment if you're buying a relative's house. So yeah, just be mindful of that. I totally agree with the appraisal because sometimes you're just like, you trust them. You don't ask as many questions as you normally would with somebody that wasn't like family or friends or that sort of thing until you get in and you're like, I paid way more than I should have for this house.
And family will lie. I'm sorry. Family will lie and then they'll act all innocent about it. And then like the cousins are like, oh, she totally knew that air conditioning was on the fritz. We've been complaining about it for 2 years, like.
Yeah, so it's good that you were able to get the deal, like get the home off market or find it off market, but now treat it like a normal sale, like you don't know them at all. Treat it like a normal sale.
You have that inspection done. Get an appraisal.
Definitely.
Are you a realtor, Florida realtor? No, I'm not. I'm a real estate agent in the South Louisiana area over near LSU. Go Tigers.
And I'm Atlanta, but that's where I'm licensed. But I think we're talking about like the whole entire like real estate market as a whole.
Yeah, we do. We talk about it all. DFW, which is in Texas, but it's also in Maryland. So we were talking about the Texas one. It normally takes over a year before it goes to auction. And livable houses usually get auctioned off for a bit above market price. Yeah, that's typical. And speaking of typical, I wanted to mention this to everybody. So in the next few months, they're going to say, there are more houses sitting on the market. Oh, look, there isn't as many buyers. This is the typical seasonality of homes, right? So at this time of year, the kids are getting back to school. People are kind of getting readjusted to their new lives, trying to get their kids to school. The traffic is more. This is not the time that typically people start shopping for houses. So you do see more homes at this time sit on the market. This is normal seasonality. If you see an exponential jump of homes listings that hit your market, then yeah, be concerned that there could be a problem in your area. But don't freak out when they say, oh, we didn't get as many sold in the month of September. That's normal. That's normal.
Right. Very normal. I would say probably getting into October, like all the holidays. By the time it's, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, a lot of people just wait to list their property the first of the year because they want to get through those holidays, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's going to be a slowdown, just a normal slowdown that's going to happen in the holiday months.
Yeah, but if you find a house that's listed during that time, those people have to sell. So you can, if they're selling during Christmas time and they're selling during Halloween and Thanksgiving, those people have no choice. They have to sell.
Yep.
Right. And then I would look to see if it says company transfer or something like that. Relocation, or they have like something that says, you have to work with Regis in order to get the paperwork through or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. Get a deal. Get yourself a deal. Totally get yourself a deal because that company has said, okay, the market value of the house is this. They bought it from the seller. The sellers have already moved out. And so now like take the take the company for a ride. Go ahead and get all you can out of them.
Yeah, because somebody lists during the holidays, like you said, they have to sell, or they're very motivated to sell. Otherwise, they normally would just wait. Like a lot of people don't want to disturb their holidays with people in and out of their house.
Yeah. I know there's like a mindset when we look at some of our real estate blogs or whatever, and they'll say during the holidays, don't let your sellers, decorate for the holidays. It might offend some people. And I'm like,
too much.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm decorating for the holidays. If I have to sell it during that time, I'm at least going to enjoy my home until the moment it sells. Yes. I'm decorating the way I want to decorate. If you're offended by my pumpkin, then you don't need my house. Like I'm not curtailing. I'm not making my house just so sterile that I'm not. Kristina says no. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that? Like, if you were to go look at a house and they were decorated for the holidays, would you find that house to be unappealing because it had Halloween decorations up or something like that? I'm curious to see.
I don't think it really matters. I think people expect to see, holiday decorations. It's not your house. It's still the other person's house. You're just looking at it. So I don't think it's really a big deal.
What do you think about people opening up cabinetry in the bathrooms when they're selling a house?
I think they're going to do it. I think you have to be prepared for the buyer to be doing that. They're going to be in your closet. They're going to be in your cabinets because, they're looking at the house. They're thinking, okay, what's the space like? What's it like? Some people are just being nosy, but you have to be prepared. So I tell people to put up like your prescriptions, put up all that stuff, just plan for them to be in almost not their like personal like dresser drawers, but if it's like a cabinet in the bathroom, kitchen cabinets, the pantry, they to me have every right to look at those.
Yeah. And just think, I want everybody to know, if you are in the buying situation, know that more and more people have home devices that can record you in one way or another. So if you don't like something in the house, whether you think the house smells like dog or you think their decorations are terrible, keep those comments till when you've left the house and you're in your own car, because they even have them outside now. It used to be that like they only did recording devices on the outside, like just record not, but now they do it. And I'm shocked how many people have video cameras inside their house. I find that to be utterly creepy, but I guess if you had kids,
they got. I had a seller that had microphones in the trees. Like he had microphones, and he's like, the buyer said this, and they said that, and they had it in the trees. Everybody almost has a Ring doorbell of some sort, so they're getting you. And a lot of times, when the agent is trying to get in the lockbox, and you're talking there, they're listening to everything you're saying on the Ring. So just be very mindful. Treat it like an open house almost. So if you wouldn't do it during an open house, like when the agent is there, don't do it, in general. So that's what I say. They're listening.
I still find it creepy that people have cameras inside their house.
Yes.
And if they're inside the bathroom, that's a big giant red flag.
Big red flag.
You're dealing with some weirdo sellers. Do you recommend staging before it goes on the market? Depends on your real estate market. If you're in a market, like I don't know of anywhere that's a complete buyer's market right now, but staging your home can mean there's different levels of staging. It could be staging just to declutter. There could be staging where you have to remove half your furniture because it's overstuffed with furniture. So talk with your real estate professional if that's something you need for your specific house. It doesn't even matter what market you're in. Even in the last market where houses were selling in 10 seconds flat, if you had a bunch of stuff everywhere, I tell you to clean up your house before I ever listed it. What do you say, Shaheeda?
Yeah, I had a house that I listed, and it was in a very nice neighborhood, Smyrna, which is like really close to Metro Atlanta, by like where the Atlanta Braves play. Great house. It was totally like a rehab, very nice, but it was sitting on the market before I listed it for like 45 days or longer. So I did go ahead and stage it because it was small. So I had it staged every single room. Also, it was in a flood zone. So it had some negatives against it. Yes. So I had to do all of those things. But when it was staged, it sold like in the flood zone. It still sold like in 10 days.
Yeah. So, and if you are in a flood zone, by the way, or you see a house that's in the flood zone and they have a old flood certification certificate or an old flood map that goes with it, call around to get those insurance quotes for that flood in that area, because
I was going to say I had everything uploaded so they knew how much extra insurance they had to pay. I had, a quote from like the local insurance person. So we kind of just did everything, but the staging definitely brought more buyers out to the property.
Well, you did more than most real estate agents because most of them just say it's in a flood zone. Well, what flood zone is it? Oh, I don't know. I'm like, okay.
Making sure whatever question they had to ask, they were asking, well, how much extra will it be? And what? So I just uploaded everything so they could see exactly what it was. And the buyers that came, they had been looking for like 2 months. And I said, well, it's in a flood zone. You saw all the paperwork. And they were like, yeah, they don't care at all. They're fine with that. I was like, great. Close the deal.
And if they say it's in a flood zone and they don't have a flood elevation certificate, you can ask the sellers to provide you a flood elevation certificate. That's not something that is unheard of for them to do. So they should have that anyways, but you know.
And it was kind of like it wasn't even the house in the flood zone too. It was like the yard. But sometimes if anybody sees like flood zone, they kind of like, they don't want to even think about it. But so we had all of that, like what area was in the flood zone, just making it very clear to the buyer.
I had a friend who had a house in Florida. That part of her house, the backyard was part of the wetlands preservation, and they put a garden out there, and the freaking state came in and was like, "Whoa, sister, pull that up. That ain't happening." Nope. She got fined. She got fined. You can't do that. We got a $20 super chat that came in. Hey, Simon. Simon Smith says, moving to North Virginia to Texas because to work remotely, I can work remotely in Texas. Good on you. I want to move sooner rather than later. Does that mean selling during a bad time, winter, fall, because I can't leave it unoccupied, or is that another option? Moving from North Virginia, want to move faster. Can you rent it? Can you rent it out? I mean, if that's an option.
Yeah. At least with my first house, I regret that I sold it instead of renting it, because looking at it now, it would be a great rental property for a first-time home buyer. So if that's an option.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to rent it, like if you could do like a not a 12-month lease, but maybe like a half 6-month lease, because some people can do that or need that because they're building their house or for whatever reason, or even just do a month to month, only up to 6 months before like before the spring season starts, the hot season. Try to do that. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And if you can hold on to it, hold on to your income producing property.
Yeah. And I would say, what's the market in Northern Virginia? Are things still selling? Because I mean, it's still in most places a seller's market. You still may be able to get, at least market, rate for your home. You just may not be able to get, above, like, people are paying above market rate and no appraisal and that sort of thing.
Yeah. 6-month lease is entering. Thanks. No problem. Oh, another market that everybody's been talking about on all the YouTube videos, and not one of them is a real estate agent in that market, is the Boise market. And I have an agent that's coming out next week. She's not a YouTuber. She's like, I've never done this before, but we have talked extensively. And then this girl has talked about the Boise market extensively to talk about actually what's going on, because I call them the housing crash bros. Ooh, say that the values have gone down 50%. And she's like, oh no, I'll bring the hard data. That's 100% not true. But they have had price reductions in that area, and what that actually means, and what does their housing market look like right at this moment. So if you're in the Boise, Idaho area and you are interested to learn more about it and see if maybe this is a catalyst for the rest of the United States, make sure that you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss next week's show, because you get that little, notification. And if you're in the Atlanta area, you're going to want to talk to Shaheeda Hill right here and go to her channel. She puts out content, superior content. I mean, this girl is killing it in real estate YouTube views. I mean, she gets better reviews than I do. I'm gonna be honest.
No, I don't. I'm trying to catch up with you. I'm trying to catch up with you. But yeah, here she is. Channel, specifically, if you're a first-time home buyer and trying to navigate those waters, it's a really great channel for that.
Yeah, look, and even Lawnmower put your link to the channel in the chat, so that way, if anybody hasn't done that, they can.
Thank you so much.
Uh, this is this is this one came in, so I got to catch it really quick.
Okay.
Hey Christina, what do you think of the soundness of a structure of recreational resort cottages sold by Mr. Tiny? I do not know who Mr. Tiny is,
Right.
but if you were buying a park model tiny home, those are built to RV specifications, which are completely different specifications than HUD specifications, than IBC code specifications. So find out what that house is built like. What is the documented longevity? What is the fire rating for the materials that are in that house? Like, do your research. I do not know who Mr. Tiny is. I haven't seen that person yet, but anyways. Have you ever had a underwriter kill the sale?
All the time.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, underwriters will kill a sale, but it's not really them killing the sale necessarily. It's things that the buyer may have not disclosed,
Lied about.
They didn't think it was a big deal, right? So yes, it's happened before, to the point where I think I have a video about the 10 things that could get your loan denied after closing, after going under contract. So IRS is a big one a lot of the times. When you're that doesn't come up on your credit report, but when they pull the other reports, it does come up on. And then child support is a big one that people don't disclose or they don't talk about, and then it comes up later. Those are the major surprises that buyers generally have that get their loan denied after they're under contract and in underwriting.
I had one denied because I had 2 properties on that property, and both of them were income producing properties on that property. And because they shared the water, but not the electricity, it was all the way. I mean, I was refinancing it. It was 3 days away from closing. And they were like, nope, we can't do the conventional loan on this because of that. I'm like, oh,
yes.
Oh, thank you, moderators, for keeping the chat clean. It looks like everybody was on their best behavior today, so I appreciate that. And you know what? We have people that come out here every week. I want to say thank you to you guys that always spend a good hour and 15 minutes with me and my guest, like Shaheeda. Right. A lot of you, I've seen you in Shaheeda's comment sections as well, so it's nice to see that you support us both.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're wonderful. Oh,
appreciate it. Yes,
you're more than welcome to come on anytime. People love you. I love you. You're amazing.
Thank you. You are too.
Oh, look, Eddie's gonna. Oh, look, if you need a referral for a real estate agent in your area and you want to help me oh my God, I can't talk. If you want me to help you find you a real estate agent in the area that I'm connected to thousands across the country, and many of them are just right here, a click away on my phone. Just make sure you fill out the phone number part so I can give you a call and we could talk on the phone about what you're looking for. So all you do is fill out this referral form, you put your contact number in there so I can call you, and then I'll find you a real estate agent. So that's it. So easy. Yay. Bye, everybody. I hope you have a fantastic week. If there's anything new that comes up in the real estate market, I'll let you know. And next week's gonna be awesome because all these people that talk about the Boise housing market don't live there. They know nothing about it. They're not real estate agents. They're not investors. They're not even appraisers. They're just reading headlines and spitting out things that they regurgitated that they heard before. So.
Yeah, that's gonna be an exciting one because there's a lot of negativity about that market.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, moderators. Thank you, Shaheeda. Thank you, Eddie Smallhorn in the background for being my producer. I'm gonna go eat some deep fried turkey, Louisiana deep fried turkey, and then with the leftovers, I'm making turkey gumbo. It's delicious.
Ooh, that's gonna be good.
I know.
Yes.
You're gonna jam it out. We're gonna jam it out on the way out. This is my attempt at the wave. This is the closest I can get it to look actually like a wave.
Got it.
I can't. I always wanted to do the thing.
It's very chill music though.
I know it's hip. It's hoppy. It's hippity hoppy hippity hop. It's good. It's got a little jam to it. Eddie lets this go on for a little bit longer because he likes to sit there and watch me dance.
Oh, okay. Yes.